Alright guys, we're back. Today we're going to review Nicky Ryan's Wrestle Up series. This instructional is not a very long instructional, it is 3 chapters, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot in it. Nicky Ryan, otherwise known as Gordon Ryan's little brother, seems to have developed his own style, separate from Gordon, more willing to wrestle up with his bigger balls. Definitely excelling in this wrestling up style, which makes sense with his stature, where he's more able to get his shorter legs underneath his hips and his head. You can see this in the Dante Leon match, which he goes into detail here in the instructional. Unfortunately, he did not have as much success traditional wrestling on the feet at the most recent ADCC, but that does not mean he is not a good wrestler, as there are a lot of factors like the point tactics, strategy, exhaustion, and especially looking a little beefy, so he may have gassed himself out with all the Mexican peptides. The saucy acai going around these days might have hindered him, who knows. People are going to call this modern jiu-jitsu, but I don't know how modern it is. I think I remember seeing Nicky Ryan hitting these seated double legs back when he looked like an altar boy. I believe I even remember seeing Miesha Tate do it in the UFC twice against Ronda, one successful, and one unsuccessful. They mentioned in the most recent JRE with Gordon Ryan that Danaher was studying Nick Diaz versus Diego Sanchez because there was a lot of up and down scrambles. Now you can shit-can Diaz's, Sanchez's or even Miesha Tate's technique as far as pure grappling goes, but there's a lot of potential for innovation when the incentives are to not stay on bottom. Innovations come from contexts. In the context of leglocking, the tactics of the opponent were to disengage the guard, so the next answer was to wrestle up from guard. I'm sure once it was said on the podcast, the YouTube algorithm on that fight skyrocketed with jiu-jitsu nerds trying to find out clues for what the next wave of jiu-jitsu might be. In jiu-jitsu, everyone's going to tell you that it's how hard you train, but the element of surprise is probably one of the biggest factors of your success. When someone has been training for X amount of years passing people's guards conventionally and then all of a sudden the guard player wrestles up, he's probably going to be taken down. Very effective with the element of surprise, but now people are starting to get wise to it, lowering their posture and anticipating it. There are still good things to elicit reaction from bottom, like collar ties and elbow passes, and in a wrestling context you're always winning head position with yours underneath theirs without compromising your posture, but rather than being susceptible to snap downs like in wrestling, you are susceptible to pushbacks because you are starting off in an unathletic stance. So the next best wave might be something like Michael McGee's knee drop series. To go check out Earn Your Gold Medals channel for his breakdown. If you have enough space to play seated, why not sit in a more athletic position? Unlike the guard, which inherently starts in a defensive cycle, because a guard is reactive. You can also add feints. Feinting is something you can't typically do from bottom like you could when you're passing. This knee drop could add another dimension to your guard, a few more inches to your takedown, and your reach would be as far as you could pounce while giving you more room to breathe on bottom rather than being overwhelmed by passing pressure. Like a coiled viper. Maybe in other sports it's how hard you train, and obviously yes, you should be training hard in jiu-jitsu, but even if a black belt has been training for 10 plus years, if you show him something he hasn't seen before, you're gonna catch him just as well as if you show a D1 wrestler something he hasn't seen before. You can also take him down. It just takes a little bit of finesse. Like a butt-scooting banana peel, use the seated guard as your friend. Scoot toward the NCAA wrestler and dummy sweep with impunity. He can maybe step around one banana peel, maybe two, but you just keep dummy sweeping. Another banana peel, another banana peel. The banana peel is butt scooting towards you. Eventually you're going to off-balance him, and as they're catching their balance, boom, lock, double. You hit a quick dummy sweep before you're double, and half the battle's already won with an off-balance, or kazushi if you would like to honor our linguistic weeaboo overlord Danaher-san. But with the latest counters to the wrestle-ups, you might have to anticipate him and retreat back to leg locks. Although with the latest back take counters, I would highly caution you to use leg locks with double leg variations to not get caught in a defensive cycle. But don't just cop out and give up on takedowns halfway into the legs. It's not going to be convincing. You are a wrestler now. Get comfortable with finishing takedowns. This is great for intermediate players and definitely wrestlers. MMA guys and maybe even some beginners might find this a little easier to translate rather than playing off your back, because playing off your back is quite a foreign movement, very unnatural and hard to pick up for some people. If you're brand new to the sport and you're wondering if this instructional is for you, I wouldn't get it unless you get a pin escape and guard retention instructional first, because you're gonna try this and you're gonna get pancaked or forced into supine, and you're probably gonna end up in front headlock, so you might need front headlock escapes by Danaher or Craig or something like that as well. So as a standalone instructional, all for a newbie might not be the best bang for your buck. Although I'd say if you're somewhat fresh to jiu-jitsu and you learn this stuff, it will be a lot funner for your development, where there's going to be a lot more scrambles, a lot less of you being pinned and scrambling. You're going to have some instinctual reactions rather than learning guard in a time in the sport where the guard seems so inferior. With this threat you can dictate the pace a bit more where you're not in a guard just waiting to be passed exhausted by clinging to transient grips. You can start reaching to him and put him on the back foot, and get some air. I would even say at this point it's not even a preferential style but a mandatory skill. If you run a jiu-jitsu school, there's a lot of problems associated with making wrestling a part of your curriculum. There's already enough danger of people bumping into each other and rolling out of bounds. So unless you have a mega gym with lots of space, having all of your students wrestle all at once isn't really realistic, but then your students will be deficient in the wrestling aspect of the game. This is where this instructional comes in handy. This is more a training tool than a new wave. To reconcile this, doubles, singles and scrimmage wrestling from bottom can manage the space better in the gym, minimizing injuries, minimizing pushing out of bounds and running into other people, simulating the perfect shot from the feet and safely getting your reps. Master wrestling up, and all you have to learn after that is the hand fight on the feet, and then you can start to connect the two systems that you've developed and become a really competent all-around grappler. Although wrestling up is not new, there are a lot of developments added to it. For example, in Chapter 2 Nikki talks forcing bad shots and hitting go-behinds and also hitting wrestle-ups from supine, where the element of surprise favors you once again as opposed to when you're seated and your intentions might be more transparent. The instructional goes into ways to avoid guillotines with options like ankle picks, but he also goes into what to do when you get into front headlock danger. When it comes to prevention or cure, it is going to be much faster for your development to put yourself in these positions in training rather than to avoid them. Maybe you try to play this style and there is a lot more inherent front headlock and back exposure, so you might get subbed more times in a round, but you'll end up getting more attempts and opportunities within the round to repeat the move rather than playing supine, wasting half the round trying to make attachments that slip and being put under passing pressure for the rest of the round. Leverage your training time at the cost of your ego. If nothing else, your rolls are going to be more fun and dynamic. In Power Bottom, Craig talks about how the dangerous leg lockers are always trying to pull someone into their guard, so opponents are going to disengage them. In the context of jiu-jitsu, where there's push-pull, there is a double negative. A pull-pull. When you're so obsessed with trying to pull them into your guard, you forget your guard retention and they knee cut. If you are just starting out trying to develop a guard, I would say you will have more success getting a pin escape instructional first, so you can attack from guard after escaping a pin, so there is more connection and harder for them to back out. Like how DDS used to let people mount them just so they could kip out and leg lock them. As opposed to trying to learn how to play guard whilst also trying to figure out a way to make him engage your guard. Unless you want to go Craig's route and use shit talk to make people engage your guard. A lot of people fall for this trap, on and off the mats. The Verbal Hand Fight Instructional by Review Fanatics. Coming soon. This is Nicky Ryan's first instructional and it's pretty damn good. I am keen to review his other instructional fighting back from leg locks, so keep your eye out for that one and let me know in the comments what instructional you want me to review next. In the meantime, peel that scab off your butt scootin' butthole and put that onion ring in a glass box as an ornament to remind you your butt scooting days are over, or even better yet, eat that crusty onion ring butthole scab as communion. You're a wrestler now. See ya.